Welcome. Mailbag here, spying mailbag. Camera's there. Got to sit back a little bit, different angle. Open up the blinds, Morgan, so stop freaking out about that. Great job with the Act 6. I thought the spying stuff is by far the most interesting part of all the Cold War. A lot of great questions. Really impressed by a lot of the answer to the essential question. Is about a 50-50 split. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought that most people would have the Soviets as the better espionage group. But it's about a 50-50 split. Pretty good with that. A lot of stuff you'd like to learn more about with spying specifically. So next week we'll do a video on that. So I'll give you some time to kind of look some stuff up. All right, let's do some questions. All right, serious questions first. Got the coffee or die box. Happy Mother's Day? Yeah, okay. On an overall basis, how successful was the U.S. spying versus the Soviet Union? Sophie S., good old Wonder Woman. Sophie, someone might always pick your questions. I'm not sure how, because it's a random, but hey, I'm happy because they're always great questions. It's tough because it's how do you Texas rattlesnake? It's how do you judge, what criteria are you going off of? In terms of total intelligence gathered, it's probably a 50-50 split. The U.S. reliance on technology, spying, things like that. Not spying. Reliance on technology, like airplanes, wiretapping, was extremely successful. It doesn't sound as cool though. While the Soviets, they got a lot of intelligence and some intelligence that certainly shifted the tides of the Cold War. However, it's not like it was that much more successful than what the CIA was doing. I'll go with the Soviets just because of two things. One is their intelligence ends up getting them the atomic bomb, which no intelligence gathering we had gave anything close to that. And then two, the John Walker to Lynn spy ring, they gave up so much information that it may have actually shifted the tide in Vietnam. So it's I would say it's probably if you look at total amount of intelligence gathered, it's similar. But I'll give the nod to the Soviets in terms of the better intelligence agency. Great question. Love it. Sophie, always a great job. One day when you're president, remember me. Just don't throw me in jail. That's all I'm asking. Okay. Who's a famous U.S. spy during the Cold War? Noah G. Noah also, because I haven't picked his funny questions, Noah has some of the best funny questions. I just haven't picked a lot of them. For the United States, I cannot pronounce his name correctly. I'm not going to try, to be honest. But there was a former KGB Russian Red Army colonel who was one of their heads of essentially the equivalency of their Air Force that defected to the United States, or spied for the United States, and gave us basically their complete breakdown of the MiG fighting planes. So we were able to basically figure out how to shoot down the MiG because of this Russian spy for the United States. In terms of Americans who are spying overseas, the CIA doesn't do that. We have and this could be an entire video on its own, but what the CIA does is they find people who are already living in that country and called assets, and they find people to turn or who are willing to turn against their country. The CIA doesn't really risk American lives in the espionage game, and so yeah, that's tough. Even though probably the most famous CIA operative, Robert Menendez. You should look him up. He's written 2 books, made a movie on him called Argo. Legitimately the most interesting operations officer maybe in CIA history. James Olsen is another one. These are both guys who were involved in the Cold War. Both were major players in this. They weren't spying undercover the way we traditionally think of James Bond, but they're certainly doing acts of espionage. So I'd say James Olsen and Robert Menendez are probably the two most, or Melendez are probably the two most famous. Paul Redmond is up there. Late 70s, early 80s, there's a lot of kind of a who's who of American espionage agents. So kind of bolster the three kind of in mind right now. Okay, next question. I really need to shave and get a haircut. Both. And the top of my head is cut off. How many spies died during the Cold War? Alexis O? We aren't entirely sure. From the American side, we know some did die because if you ever have the opportunity to go to Langley, Virginia, and the CIA headquarters, when you walk in on the one wall, there's a bunch of gold stars, and each star represents a CIA operative who was killed in action, but there's no names. And so they you can count how many stars, but not all those are Cold War related. So certainly there were some. Russian numbers, we have no idea whatsoever. None. Some of their agents certainly were killed in the field. Other ones were killed back in Russia when things kind of went south on certain operations. But yeah, I can never get the camera thing right. Jeez. Okay, we'll go one more serious question. This might be the worst mailbag we've ever had. Not because of the questions. Because of me. I'm ruining it, guys. I'm ruining it. Why is baseball suspended if... I think I put this one in the wrong one. Why is baseball suspended if basically the team is barely standing next to each other? Brady, yes. Brady Shower. Brady, it's honestly a great question. I think baseball's going to be back July 1st. Everything I've read, and I've been following this really closely, is that they're going to try to start up baseball again on July 1st. Baseball inherently is a sport of self or social distancing. So I think that one will be the first one back. In Korea right now, they're actually playing, and once a day they have a Korean game played on ESPN, which I've been watching much more than I like to admit. But no, I agree. I think it's kind of ridiculous. We'll go one more. That's more of a funny question. Great question. One more. Okay, clearly I put the wrong ones in the wrong thing because here this is one is what's your favorite type of music? Nick G. Let's go country music. Country music, okay. This could be serious, it could be funny. I don't know. I screwed up the boxes. So, my bad. This is a serious question? I screwed this all up. I screwed the entire thing. How would they have to make so much money to rebuild countries after the last essential question was they only had a little money left? Australia, okay. This is a reference to the Marshall Plan. So Europe did not actually contribute any money to the Marshall Plan. It was all the United States. So after World War II, we're the only country left that really isn't just completely decimated by the war. And so our economy is able to rebuild faster. It's not that we have this extra money. It's just that with our industry, we're able to, essentially rebuild ourselves so much faster that we can then help Europe rebuild as well. There's two reasons for it. One is obviously to stop communism. That in countries where you had strong economies, communism never flourished, because it preyed upon the weakness and it preyed upon the panic and the chaos of poor economic situations. So a strong economy would always lead to no socialism or no communism. Two, though, was the United States needed a market. They needed people overseas to buy our goods, and so there was also other motivation for us rebuilding Europe, but that's where the money came from. I'm going to go with this box. It could be a funny question, could be a serious question, because I screwed it up. I'm sorry, guys. Let you down. Who's your favorite student at RMS this year? Elizabeth D. I can't answer that question. There's certain students, and I think for some of you guys, I've actually had you for 3 years. Other students I've had for 2 years. Some students I've only known for a year. Some students I haven't had for 3 years, but I've known for 3 years. So that's stinks trying to make a decision like that, and it stinks doing this because certainly there's a lot of students I really like, it's really not the way we wanted to kind of end the 8th grade year on especially a lot of the relationships you build with other with students and things like that. I will come up with next video with a list on the spot. I'd be forgetting people and I don't want to do that, but Elizabeth, it's a cop-out answer. It's a cop-out answer. This could be a funny, could be a serious question because I screwed up the boxes. Well, I kind of put self-tanner on and turned orange. Drew. It's not a question. A lot for me to unpack there. I think this is a funny question. Serious one? Drew, I don't know if you can wash that off. I'm not familiar with the self-tanner game. I'm sorry. And, if I don't know. I have no good answer for that. Let's go over here. This could be serious. It could be funny. I don't know. I think I'm finally going to shave. Jeez, that looks ridiculous. Why do they have so many different policies? Lily Kate. Lily, this is a serious question, I think. Great question. The reason was because no one really knew what they were doing. Like, legitimately. That's part of the reason why there's so many different policies, because it's the old, like, let's just throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and see what sticks approach. No one really had a great idea of how to combat the Soviets right away, and it's really not for a good, like, 30-some years in the Cold War we start to get a better handle on these things. And so a lot of it's just because no one knew what to do, and so everyone's just guessing. And when you have people just guessing, you have a lot of different plans put in place. That's a great question, though. It's going to be serious. It's going to be funny. It is serious. How much training did the spies go through before they went on missions? Riley W. It depends. Both U.S. and the Soviets for like in the field agents certainly went through extensive training. For people who in the actual like DC offices in DC, so like CIA operatives there, a little less training because you weren't actually in the field, so the danger wasn't as much. But certainly, we're talking about 8 months to a year before you're actually going on operations. For individuals that are like a deep agents, so that'd be a lot of what the Soviets are doing, like long-term spying. We could be talking about years before they're actually put out into the field. So like they weren't leaving anything to chance. Funny question or serious question. It's the last one, unless it's a bad question. Great question. This is the ending question. If Jordan didn't have Pippen, would he have gone 6 for 6 in rings? Brady shower. Brady, you got 2 today. 2 today. Rattlesnake. No, for sure. Please watch The Last Dance on ESPN. It's a great docuseries. No, the two needed each other. That Jordan doesn't win 6 without Pippen. Like, Pippen is probably the most underrated Hall of Famer in NBA history. I'd have a tough time coming up with someone else who was as good as he was and still doesn't get the credit he deserves. So, and Jordan even said in the docuseries, I don't know, I looked at the TV's not on, but that without Pippen, there is no 6 rings. And I think that's a great question, great way to end it. I screwed up the boxes. I'm going to fix the boxes. The boxes will be fixed at some point in time. We'll do some more stuff on the spine. A lot of really good questions. They'd be better if I didn't screw up the boxes. Ooh, one more. When was the last time you watched WWE? Drew, second great question. It was on Wednesday. I watched NXT. Pretty good. Pretty good matches. When was the last time, Drew, you watched WWE? Okay. So, you guys have a good rest of your day. Have a good week. Hopefully the weather has turned. As I'm saying that, I'm not looking at the camera either. There it is. It's snowing. I'm looking at snow right now, which is awful. But that's okay. That's okay. So you guys have a good weekend. Good rest of your week. Keep asking great questions. You guys are doing a great job. Shoot me some emails. Remember, believe in yourself. Believe in the country. Believe in some coffee. Believe in the WWE and the Texas Rattlesnake. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Till next time. There we are.